check this out. This was Sunday night. Ian Rappaport. This is what he tweeted, Milkoff. As the 49ers close in on their decision of which QB to take at number 3, sources say they are down to 2 prospects. And the belief is those 2 are Mac Jones and Trey Lance. Several sources say the focus does appear to have shifted to those 2. So can we just analyze his words here before we even talk about exactly what it would mean if this were true?
Yes, one word jumps out there, the belief.
I would say 2 words. I would add the word appear to that.
Yeah, to me, there are not those aren't in concrete. The decision has been made, or they are down to their final 2, and over the next 48 hours, they will determine the one.
I would say can I just say something? The report to me here, if we just try to synthesize it down, is they're down to their last 2 prospects. Like, that's his report.
Well, I think we typically get this in a coaching search, right? Wouldn't you say if the Niners were looking for a coach, this would be a normal tweet in a coaching search, which would feel very normal. Very unlike, I would say it's very abnormal for a draft with a team not drafting number 1 overall. It's like the team at 3 guy is down to 2. Like, that's pretty nuts. That's not typical.
By the way, they're down to 2, which is really QBs 3 and 4.
Yeah, so that's what makes this draft, and we'll dive into it, pretty cool. But I do think it's been trending this way for a while. The Justin Fields talk, which we'll get into in a little bit, has been kind of he was never in the Mac Jones conversation. Like, the one thing you will say that's been pretty consistent is Mac Jones was coming from all angles. That he was the reason, I think you could safely say, it was assumed on the outside and then hammered home by all the pundits that the reason they made the trade was because of Mac Jones, but they were open-minded to the other 2. And then over this process, Trey Lance has appeared. That would be the take from just following everyone. My personal take was they thought Trey Lance, now they really like Mac Jones too, but they made the trade knowing once they had studied the tape that his physical traits, that he was definitely in the mix, and that his physical traits, they needed this couple months to make the decision. They overpay to get the slot. They basically just paid for a slot in the line, right? Because they were so far behind in the line. If you put it to like Black Friday, there were only, in their view, 3 or 4 TVs, and the TVs were all going to be gone before they fucking got their slot or their little tag. You know, like when you go to a sandwich place that's packed and you pull a number and it's like 55 and you listen for the next number to be called and they're like 17. You're like, I'm going to be here a while. And you would pay at that time for a $15 sandwich. You would pay an extra probably $10 to just be the next sandwich, right?
The funny deli to do that at is Molinari's in North Beach. You've been there. The thing about Molinari's, you take a tag, then you pick your own loaf of bread out of a bucket. So then you got 30 people all bumping into each other. Just everyone's holding an uncut loaf of bread. It's like,
say what you want, though. It's an elite sandwich.
It's a fantastic sandwich.
It's an elite sandwich. It's got a little soup Nazi vibe. It's just not normal.
No,
for sure.
But to me, what we're talking about from the trade standpoint, you say maybe they like Trey, and then they were going to evaluate everybody. I think, to me, what Mike Silver said on Friday made a lot of sense. They liked Mac, and then by trading up, they gave themselves the freedom to dive into everybody without having to worry about tipping. To me, that lines up on the timeline better with John Beck taking over as Trey Lance's personal QB coach for a period of time. So I do think there's, again, I think what makes this really interesting, and after they pick, we could always go do the postmortem. I think there's a compelling case. Like, I think we can listen to what John and Kyle said at their previous press conference, and I think we could pick it and play it either way. Was Kyle annoyed by the Kirk Cousins questions because he's about to not take anybody? He's about to not take a guy that people will compare to Kirk. Was he annoyed by it because he's about to take a guy that people will compare to Kirk, but he doesn't think that guy should be compared to Kirk? He thinks that's a lazy comparison to compare him to Kirk. Like, I don't know. Whoever he drafts will be able to, with hindsight, say, oh, that's why he felt the way he felt. But I think the one thing that won't change after they pick is that when they made the trade, John Lynch said, we paid a premium to move up early, right? And now we could get into why, right? One of the reasons might be just because they knew who they wanted. They thought somebody else wanted that person. The other reason could be they wanted to be able to freely go deep into all the quarterbacks without having to worry about other people knowing what they were up to. But I do think, like, I tend to lean with what Silver wrote because it also matches the timeline of all the Mac Jones reports that came a month ago. So
the way I wish this was my own take, but someone sent me this and it makes a lot of sense from in the NFL. Basically, if you're determined to upgrade Jimmy, which was clear when the season ended at 6-10, it was like, this can't go on.
yeah,
Like Jimmy's availability was the problem as much as his ability. The opportunity to control your own decision is why you have to, quote unquote, overpay a month and a half ago, whatever, right? 12-3, a historic amount, right? And if you believe there is going to be a guy at 3 out of the three of them at the time, if you assume Trevor and Zach go 1, and you think there are multiple guys that would be worthy of that decision, you have to believe that other people are going to think that as well, right? If you go, well, we're high-level football people, there are other high-level football people in this. Just go back to Mahomes. Who was the other team that was smitten over him? It was Sean Payton. Like, it was like, yeah, the two high-level guys loved Patrick Mahomes. So you just could think,
and John
there were
Schneider
kind of
with remember the after the report.
Well, John Schneider's got a little
too.
like Danny Ainge with Draymond. Like, there's a third guy on our board. It's like, oh, yeah. Now, in fairness, I think John Schneider I think Russell thinks like he's going looking at quarterbacks. I think he's just like a scout, and he loves going to these pro days, right? It's like I think he just likes to go see these prospects, and I mean, they haven't come close to getting any of them really.
No,
so it's
no. But also, I also love Josh Allen. Remember, John Schneider loved Josh Allen.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, they overpay to get the right to make the decision. Now, I think once the decision's made, and to me, my favorite part about this week is we're going to have a decision made, and then we can give our opinions. And really, you and I were talking before we hit record. It'll probably be impossible if Mac's the guy that's going to be the most polarizing decision. The argument would just be did you have to pay that much? And with all the other moves, it'll be hard to ever hammer it home if you would have or you could have got him later. Because I'll always believe, and there'll be people with the Niners that will probably claim that it would have been, they wouldn't have known for sure and wouldn't have felt great and wouldn't have controlled. Because I would just say, well, the Eagles were willing to pay. Why wouldn't you just go from 12-6 to get Mac Jones? Because I would say, if they take Trey Lance, I would defend him and go, yeah, Trey, his physical attributes, his character, he was not going to last probably till 6.
Yeah,
but
mean,
Mac,
I think their counter would be,
I think the argument would be open-ended where you could make it and feel pretty good. Like, he'll probably be there at 6.
Their argument might be, well, we moved up thinking we liked one guy, but this goes back to what Silver wrote, right? Thinking we like Mac Jones, but also wanting to do our due diligence on the other guys. And if we're going, if John Beck is coaching up Trey Lance and we're sitting there at 6, like, we got no shot. If we ultimately conclude that's the guy we want, all of a sudden we did that deal, we concluded we wanted Trey Lance, right? Just because they draft Mac Jones, does that mean absolutely they liked Mac Jones from the beginning and they decided it was Mac Jones from the beginning? Because once you're at 3, and you made this point to me earlier when we were talking on the phone, once you're at 3, there's really not a lot of reason to send out all these misdirections. Like, you're not sending John Beck to work out with Trey Lance once you're already at 3 because it helps ESPN's ratings, and Haberman and Middlecoff love it for YouTube for 3 weeks, right?
You're doing legit scouting.
You're doing legit scouting. So where I am right now, where I've settled on it is, I do think they, like you said, you had to at least feel like there's one guy, if that's the guy you conclude you like you feel pretty good about him when you move up, because you don't want to move up and then hate everybody, because you could move back or whatever. But you don't want to move up and hate everybody. So there's one guy you think you like, but I also don't think you do all this stuff with Trey Lance just for fun.
Moving back, though, would be the equivalent of, like, you see some of these just outrageous homes when people buy like these $15, $20 million homes, and then they put them on, like I saw Shaq put this huge house in Florida up for sale for like $28 million. It's back on the market for like 15. It would be like spending $20 million and then being like, oh, well, actually, we're moving out. And they would only get 10. So to me, once you're there, you had to move. My take, though, my pick as of April 25th, 7:55 at night on a Sunday, I do believe it's going to be Trey Lance, though I still, like, on a pie chart, I'm not 90-10. Like, I'm probably 55-45. Like I'm not, if Mac Jones, I'm not going to fall out of my chair, right? I do think Trey Lance, if Trey Lance is the pick, I think the whole thing would make a lot more sense, and I would give them a lot more credit.
Yeah. Look, Trey Lance has been probably the guy I've spent the most amount of time thinking it's going to be. But part of me feels like in this moment, if he actually is the pick, I'll go, oh, I mean, I know I predicted it, but part of it was out of fear, right? If it's Mac Jones, part of it, you'll go, okay, all that stuff that happened for 3 weeks wasn't BS.
Yeah.
Right. All the like the unanimous reporting that it's going to be Mac Jones wasn't BS. I don't know. We'll see. That's the beauty of this is now we're counting down the days here to getting, we'll be able to make a bunch of conclusions and then they'll talk and we'll make more conclusions. And then we'll be like, oh, I guess the whole fun is over. And no, actually it's not. We're going to actually, eventually all these people are going to play football, which is what we're really here for. It's to watch the football, right? All this other stuff is awesome. We love it. There's not football games 365. YouTube exists, podcasts. Like, I'm not pretending like, we're better than the whole conversation. I'm all for it. But to me, the beauty of it is it doesn't end Thursday. It only just begins on Thursday.
100%.